In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at multiple arguments invoked inside or passed in inside a particular method. So multiple arguments for a particular method. Here we go. I'm going to declare another method in this particular example, one that we had in the previous tutorial. So it's just a continuation. In this particular method, let's just say it's going to be a void. Then let's call it method 4. So this means this method is not going to return anything. However, it can take more than one argument. So let's say this method is going to take an int x as its argument, and it's going to take a car, let's say c, as its argument. So these are the two arguments that the method is going to take. Notice that if a method is going to take more than one argument, that you have to separate the two arguments using a comma, as I used here. So there are two arguments. This is the first argument and this is the second argument. The first argument is called x and is an int, and the second argument is called c and is a car. So that's how to declare more than one argument in a method. We can declare yet another method. Let's call this public static. Let's make this method to return a double, and let's call this method 5. And let's make this method to return to take in 3 arguments. So we're going to declare an argument, let's say int x, then we're going to put a comma there, then this one is going to take in a car c, and a float f. So we have 3 arguments. This is a float. So we have 3 arguments in method 5, and method 5 is going to return a double. So let's spit out the arguments of method 5. So we can say system.out that print line, and I'm kind of getting lazy, so I'm going to copy this since I want to repeat those 3 statements. So I'm going to say the value, or the first value, or let's say the first argument of method 5 is, then that's gonna be x. Then we're gonna say the second argument of method 5 is, and then that's gonna be c. And finally the third argument of method 5 is, and then that's gonna be f. So here this method 5 is going to just spit out those 3 statements, and we're going to return a double, which we can just return, let's say minus 90.54, and that's it. So how about method 4? We can do the same thing. So I'm just going to copy this code and paste, but this is method 4, so I'm going to change this so that it corresponds correctly. And since method 4 is a void, it's not going to return anything. So you can see some methods return stuff, some methods don't. You don't have to. Depend on what you are using the method for. However, it depends on what you are using the method for as well. You can decide to have more than one argument, or you can have as many arguments as you wish. So it all depends, but we're gonna go into that in some other tutorial when we can decide to have more than one argument, or multiple arguments, or one argument. It all depends on what you're using the method for. So let's invoke these methods in the main method. So for method 4, since it's not going to return any stuff, so we'll simply say method 4. And since method 4 is going to take 2 arguments, which is let's take a look at it again. You're going to see that method 4 takes in an int and a car, so we need to pass in an integer and a car. So we can pass in raw numbers like 8 now, which is an integer, and we can pass in a car like ampersand, which is also a character. So that's the invocation of method 4. But if you wish to declare variables to store this stuff, then you can declare variables and assign these values to them, and then you pass in the variables like we did in method 2. Okay, so it all depends. All right, so let's try in method 5. Method 5, as you can see, method 5 is going to return a double, so we have to declare a double. Let's say double. Let's call this my dub equals method 5. Now method 5 is going to take 3 arguments. So this time around, I like to declare an integer. I can say int my int 2. Okay, I already have my int, so I'm going to say my int 2 to differentiate this, because you can't declare variables twice. So I'm going to say my int 2 is equals to 56, and I'm going to declare a car. My car 2 is equals to let's say Ash. That's a character, and we can say my let's just pass in those variables. So my int 2 is going to be the first argument. My car 2 is going to be the second argument, and what was the third argument? The third argument has to be a float. So I can pass in a floating number, or I can declare a variable that is a float and pass it in there. It all depends. You don't have to declare a variable every time, but if you want to, you could, and then you pass in the variable. What this requires is that a value must be passed in, whether it's a variable or a raw value like this. So that's it with method 5. Let's see what method 5 is going to return. So we can say the value that is returned by method 5 is my dub. Alright, so let's compile this program. I'm going to clear the screen. Hopefully we don't have any errors. Okay, so I have an error here. Double my dub method 5. That's happening at line 16. So incompatible types possibly lost a conversion. Alright, you can see here that I was supposed to pass in the float, but I did not specify that this is a float by passing in the f at the end of the floating value. So that was a mistake that I made. So hopefully solve the problem. Let's recompile again, and it compiled, so we can run the program, and here we go. So you can see, let me highlight. You can see the first argument of method 5 is 56. So that's coming from my int 2. The second argument of method 5 is Ash. That's coming from my car 2, which is equal to Ash. The third argument of method 5 is 654.1345, and we didn't declare a variable to do that, so we just passed in 654.1345 f. The f is important, as you saw it. Without it, it's not going to compile. So all these statements that we are having here, all these outputs, they are coming from method 5. So method 5 took in all this stuff as x, c, and f for the int, car, and float respectively, and then spit them out. So that's to show you that the value that is coming from the invocation is also the same value that is in the argument. Okay, the method 5 returned a double, which is minus 90.54, and you can see the value returned by method 5 is minus 90.54. So that's pretty cool. So that's it with multiple arguments in methods, and in the next tutorial we're going to deal with methods from other classes. So that's it for this particular tutorial. I hope you found this informative, and thanks for viewing.